So anyway, this is Dr. Noah Schiffman. We met, huh?
I said just Noah. I'm just
Noah.
Noah. Just Noah. Yeah.
It's Noah.
Yeah.
So we met at CarolinaCon earlier in the year, and he came up. We were, again, printing badges at CarolinaCon. They weren't credit cards, but we were having fun with one of the talks that Deviant did on flying the well, it wasn't flying the friendly skies, but it was something close to that.
Mile High Club. The Mile High Club.
The Mile High Club talk that he showed up and did.
Yeah.
So we made some specialty badges for that, which appear every once in a while. And Noah came over and started talking to us, and we really liked the information he had about his talk, and we asked him if he would come out and speak for us. And he, for some reason, agreed. I don't know why. So we drug him out here, and so we've been asking everybody if you had a story about a mentor who helped you and kind of gave you your start. If you had a quick story about that, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I was trying to think of something cool, but no, actually, probably my sort of mentor is my older brother. I have a brother who's 2 years older and way smarter than me, and I guess we got started back in the 70s with a Commodore PET, 2001, and he was really good coder and was peeking and poking stuff at when he was 8 years old, and anyway, and I looked up to my big brother, idolized him, as I bizarrely still do today. But so he sort of got me into sort of computers at an early age, and although he was really fixated on the 6502, and to this day he actually has the defunct company Moss, but the Moss logo tattooed on his arm, which that's pretty hardcore. But he was the computer geek that got me into computers, and I don't know, I sort of stayed with it. I guess I was a very intellectually curious person, and so I went to a lot of school and wasted a lot of time and money getting useless degrees, whereas he just went into the workforce and actually made money. But no, he was an inspiration, and he still is, and I think that's all I really have for inspirational. I wish I had something better, but okay. Am I done with my inspirational story part? Is that okay? Cool. Well, for those of you who've never heard me speak before, I have a tendency to mumble, and rarely do I complete full sentences. I sort of drift off different places. I go off topic and forget what I'm talking about or where I am, and just it's so just bear with me. Feel free to redirect me and whatever. Evan here is my assistant who sort of helps me. Yeah, he lets me know where. Yeah, exactly. So that's, okay, and so and this talk really will provide you with a lot of thought-provoking questions and very few answers. So I like to teach using the sort of Socratic method, or the I don't know the answer, but I'm hoping you do method, or whatever. And so, and this, I think it's appropriate that sort of scheduled around lunchtime, because this will be sort of like fast food for thought, kind of, and and yeah, it might put you to sleep. No, but so I am talking about bioveillance. Who has ever heard of bioveillance before? No, you had. I made that term up. Thank you. Yes, that's my buzzword that I'm hoping is going to catch on, and this is its debut. So it's. I mean, the word dataveillance exists. So why can't there be a bioveillance? I mean, I don't know. I've always wanted to have a buzzword that I invented, so this is my attempt. But it's a real topic, and it's sort of the combination of biometric information being used as a means of surveillance, and it's really happening, and it's kind of scary, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that and why we should be afraid. So lots of speakers like to talk about who they are or mention something, and I just, you can just Google me, and then we'll answer your questions. And it's all true. No, it's not true. I don't know. Whatever you find is, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a bunch of different things that normally would require, this is a lot of information, and I'm going to touch on just a really small part of a few of them, just enough so that it doesn't really make sense. But let's see. Yeah, sensors, yeah. But I think it's mostly up to date. Okay, so measuring a human trait, that's what biometrics is. It's, we all have unique characteristic traits that can be measured, assessed, quantified, and used for all kinds of good and evil purposes. And this back when phrenology and things like that were popular, I think these kinds of tools were used, but that's no longer the case. The internet has made these obsolete. What can be measured? There's a lot of different research going on in different types of biometric technologies, which is, to me, very comical. This slide, this was a cartoon that I found, and what's funny is that. So since, I don't know when this cartoon came out, but tongue prints, there's been a study of investigating tongue prints as an actual biometric sort of trait, and that's ridiculous on many levels. Okay, I'm not going to put my tongue on something that's the main sensory organ. I'm not putting that place. But no, it's apparently, you can get funding for just about anything. And of course, the conclusion was, more research needs to be done. It's actually, and my talk is sort of a combination of notes and slides, but there's a lot of other biometric traits that have been researched that I just will mention and give my personal thumbs up or thumbs down to, but EEGs, that's apparently they are unique and can be used for actually identifying certain aspects of individual. The ACM proceedings has some studies that actually discuss how this is used, how it's been measured. It's, time consuming that, to actually go through the sleep cycles and measure all the waves. Yeah. And then all the drug-induced sleep abnormalities that it's not happening. Even the tongue print, that is affected so much by diet, health, disease. That's, I don't know. Scent. Has anyone heard of sort of scent, odor being used as a biometric? It's a real thing. There's research going on, and there are these sort of unique biochemical markers that we have. But once again, again, it can be affected by disease states and medication, and plus just the idea of you smell this way. It's sort of like there's certain connotations of like smelling bad or smell. It's not. I don't think it's going to be socially an acceptable kind of biometric trait, but it's being done. So it's lots of research for useless methods, but the main types of biometrics, two is the sort of physiological, behavioral. That's everything sort of falls into one of those categories, and physiological is what we are, things that we can't change. We're sort of stuck with our fingerprints and faces, and you can change your face. But behavioral, which actually Gait is not on there, but how we act, how we perform certain actions that are also unique to each individual. Those are sort of the behavioral types of biometric characteristics, and they're both used in different ways and in different situations. I come across lots of very comical predictions on biometric technology, and this was one of my favorites. And from this website, this dramaticglyphics.com, DNA PDF, actually, and I'm pretty sure it's still current, but I just grabbed this screenshot here, and this website is talking about actually identifying someone's DNA, like from a photograph. Camera, there's a lot of, I don't know how many megapixels we're up to now in the latest iPhone or something. We're not going to be able to, I think, take digital pictures and actually see base pairs and things like that. But some people, I guess, yeah. Fingerprints are the most common. We've been using those for, a long, long time, and they're unique to every individual. Apparently, it's funny that even twins have unique fingerprints, but technically, until we've actually looked at everyone's fingerprint, we don't. There could be two alike, but for argument's sake, we'll say that everyone's got unique fingerprints. Basically, the image isn't stored. You're taking points, recording points of where your fingerprint has sort of unique characteristics, like endings and bifurcations, and those are plotted with XY coordinates and a sort of an angle, because the fingerprint can be rotated, and it's a very standardized and well documented and pretty reliable system. Facial recognition is a little bit newer and scarier, but so far it's working pretty well, pretty reliable. The fact that they're using it on the internet for on social networks, that is what is sort of concerning. But the main principles is actually detecting the face out of the image, and then segmenting out the face into the sort of where the different features are located, and then feature identification, and then taking little landmark measurements, and again, a pretty standardized process that's used for both 2D, 3D imaging. Iris is another common one that is showing a lot of promise. It's the fact that it can be now captured from a distance. It's not, with the retinal scanner. I don't know, has anyone actually used any of the retinal or iris scan? So was your experience, was it a user-friendly experience? Or?
Yeah, it was at a data center. It was their second factor off, and it was 6 inches away, and you had to line your face up and all that.
Okay, yeah, and so it's, early on, it had little, chin rest thing, and this laser going, IR thing in your eye. It's now a lot better, because it's it's not a retinal scan, which is the sort of back of the eye, but the iris can be actually captured now from greater distances, and actually they're able to even capture it now off of using video analytics from actually a moving subject. So you can be walking, and it's with the right lighting and certain conditions, it's now possible to capture the iris, which is kind of scary, which I don't, because you don't really need to be participating in that kind of collection, which I think it's important to be a participant. The iris also, interestingly, is also the only internal organ that can be externally viewed on a human being, I think.
Minority report, right?
But yes.
So my company is using it as at entrances as well. So it can pick up the iris and identify the person against a database now, obviously a database of employees.
Right,
So
right.
it's a smaller subset. They can do it while you're walking through the entrance. So it's at pace or remotely, but you're talking about something that starts about 10 or 15 feet away. And because it's at an entrance, it is a controlled condition in terms of lighting and a fixed installation. But basically, it'll open the door for an employee before that employee walks into the door.
That's way cool, and I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, there we go. So it's real and it's being implemented. So and you don't have to stop and this is so think about that when I start talking about sort of non-cooperative biometrics. So it's gait analysis, another area that is emerging. Yes, we initially received funding from the Ministry of Silly Walks, but it's now in the U.S. It's a dynamic trait, and it's again unique to individuals for the most part. But it's using
sort of video analytics where the background information, the static background information, is removed, and so you're looking at just the movement of the individual, and then you're breaking it into sort of the biomechanical oscillations, and anyway, it can be spoofed and changed frequently. I mean, there's a lot of things that not just putting the rock in the shoe, but wearing a backpack on one side. I mean, there's so many things that can alter gait, but it is used in terms of more and more in terms of sort of predicting behavior or intent, which is another scary area. So, all right, cognitive biometric recognition is my way of simplifying or explaining the process of a biometric recognition system. So we rely on biometrics all the time. We're constantly using it. I mean, to identify anyone that it's because you've seen them before. I mean, when you first meet them, that's where you put them in your database of information, when you notice what they look like, what their voice sounds like, all kinds of information. So that's like the enrollment process. Then when you see them again, that's the matching process. And it's unconsciously, it just happens, and it's so. And then there's the sort of biometric surveillance equivalent of in what we do is say I notice this attractive man here, Evan, but if I don't know him, I just can be like, wow, that guy's really cute. And again, I enroll him in my database, and then when I see him again, I'm like, that's that guy again, and so it's and that's.
I didn't sign up for that.
I know. But all right. So, but how it really happens with sensors is with the biometric process. You have a sensor, and you enroll whatever biometric trait and is going to be measured or quantified. You want to make sure you get a good image, and it gets processed with all kinds of magical mathematical stuff, and it gets stored in a database. The types of enrollment: voluntary, which is what we're mostly familiar with; the pseudo-voluntary. You're providing this information, but you're not really aware that it's being used for what purpose. It's actually going to be used for biometrics. And the funny thing was, I was saying, like a DMV photo, but the DMV isn't really using our pictures for biometric identification. At least I thought they weren't, but I just recently have read otherwise, which I will show you. And then there's non-cooperative. So surreptitious collection. And that's one of the things that's happening right now more and more that people are not aware of, and I think people should be aware of, because this is very personal data that, unlike your password, which can be changed, these are permanent, and it's really hard to change these. So there's some issues there that I think need to be addressed. The process, just again for the biometric system, you're capturing the sample, you process it, you try to match it to the score, what you have stored in a database, and then you make some kind of decision whether, okay, this is a match or this is not a match, and that that's those are variable, all variable depending on the situation and context. And typically the first two are happen at the front end, and then the matching and decision making are back end of the system. But that, again, there's variability. This is just a picture that's sort of diagramming the sort of process, the top being the enrollment and the bottom being sort of the presentation of your biometric trait to the system. And template is obtained from the database, and you come up with this score, and if the score is above this matching threshold, you're either the decision is for exception or rejection. So let's see. And in biometrics, there's really two different types of processes that can go on. One is the verification, sort of the one-to-one, or like for what's a good example of? Let's see. Some of the new CAC cards have? Okay. Yeah. So anyone familiar with a CAC card or? Okay. Okay. Well, so having a sort of a security token, a card that you insert into a card reader, and it actually has your biometric fingerprint or characteristics stored on that card, and you're presenting your biometric trait to the system, and it's verifying that you are the person on the card. It's a one-to-one matching. The other type, where you have one-to-N, that can be really computationally intensive depending on that N size. If it's 100 people, very doable. But if for identifying in the general population where N can be millions, that's tough, and I don't think it's with fingerprints, with APHIS. I mean, that's probably the largest one-to-N system in existence, but they're working on more one-to-N systems that are kind of scary. When I say there, I don't know who I'm talking about.
He's just not saying who.
So when you're looking at the biometric systems, there's a couple different sort of metrics and that you look at as the true positives, true negatives. It's basically if you're falsely authenticated or correctly authenticated, or if you're able to, if you're rejected appropriately, or even though you're presenting your real biometric trait, you're still rejected. That's sort of the true negatives, false positives. And actually those are used for assessing the performance of different biometric systems. And so you want to keep your true positive rate as high as possible, and you want to minimize your false positive rate. And to be honest, it's tough to do, and it's as your true positive rate increases, then you start, people start having the ability to spoof and bypass the system a little bit more easily, and so that that curve is typical for biometric systems, but needs to be improved. Soft biometrics is sort of a very powerful type of biometrics where you're not measuring the specific quantitative, precise information that you would with traditional. It's descriptive. It's not distinctive to the individual. It's hair color, eye color, but it's when taken together, it's actually very powerful and very descriptive and can be very unique. And so it's sort of a form of biometrics that is used both by itself and in cooperation with traditional biometric qualities. An example for like soft facial biometric traits is looking at certain characteristics of the face, and you're able to actually deduce gender, ethnicity, age, and all. And again, this can be done in an automated fashion. That this is with part of facial recognition. It's soft facial biometrics is easily accomplished, and it's being used in many systems, and it's even with online social network profiles and pictures, it's quite common. So some of the newer sensors and newer systems, this Hitachi surveillance camera system, I personally have not checked it out. I could not afford one to test, but their claims are quite bold. And but I mean, 36 million faces per second is insane, and that's NEC super resolution cameras. I don't know what I actually researched a lot about what the definition of super resolution versus very high resolution, and there's no standards. But anyway, it's sort of I don't know. Has everyone seen the enhance that video? The zoom enhance. Well, they get kind of close to that in some ways. They actually sort of take parts of a photograph, and it gets compared with little patches of information from a stored database, and so it's not traditionally enhancing, like taking something that's a bunch of pixels and zooming in, and now you just have like 4 big pixels that mean nothing. But this company actually has a pretty cool video surveillance system that is. This is actually an example of a picture. It's a video. It's dynamic video, but this is just a static picture from it. But it shows you the actual sort of resolution of how you can sort of zoom in and enhance that, and for things for facial recognition or license plate. In Europe, that automated license plate recognition is huge, and that's and that's a 90-degree field of view. I mean, it's pretty significant, and it's being employed more and more in different places and covertly. Persistent surveillance, it's networked of video cameras essentially, and if there's a person of interest or a target, and they will actually mark them, and it's easy to track them from location to location. And these networks are actually set up in areas that require certain level of sensitivity that maybe require high security areas, with classified information, whatever. But anyway, so when you see multiple video cameras in certain locations, know that this actually could be a sort of a mesh network to track individuals. And it's my favorite automatic license plate recognition, which I'm sure everyone has seen before. But I just put that in because it's funny. Let's see. Record linkage. This really is just more of sort of looking at the way data from public and private data sets can be combined to identify individuals
that you don't think that, I mean, your private data and public data actually can correlate and match up with if you have certain, known traits that are in both subsets, and this is also being done quite a bit, and it's kind of concerning. So with this data collection too, one of the problems is often identifying information that we don't want to be identified, and I love the Target example, which is, are people familiar with Target with their directed advertising, where they basically I think it was like in Minnesota, where it's a young female who in the mail was receiving targeted advertising or coupons for things like diapers and familial things that had to do with having a newborn baby, and I guess she lived with her father, and when he saw that she was getting this targeted advertising, was upset and went to Target to complain and wanted to know why his daughter was getting these ridiculous advertisements and coupons. She's not pregnant, and well, she was, and that's so thanks to Target, that was how he found out, and that's that's not how I want to tell my parents that I'm knocked up. So with biometric privacy issues, so unintended use. Again, we provide this biometric information. We think it's going to be used for one thing. It's used for something else. Not good. Data retention. How long is it going to be stored, and where is it going to be stored? Context leakage. We all know there can be data leakage for all different reasons, and it can be shared with third parties and used for impersonation. Wait, hold on. Where's my graphic? Yes. So I love the fact that covering your face. Because with hand geometry recognition, that really no longer works. You're just presenting them with a different image to use. So remember that. It's you need to pull your shirt like over your face or something else. There's a lot of different ways techniques using to try to anonymize data. Some work, some don't. The problem is the more you sort of anonymize this information, it often becomes more and more useless. So, disclosure risk, information loss. Those are two things that you would like to minimize. So you don't, you want to minimize how much you reveal about this data, but then its utility and use, if that declines too much, then it's useless, and that's a tough battle that, again, I don't know the solution for. Another thing is segregation of actual tasks, like someone has the database with all the templates stored, and another party is the one that accepts the samples that are going to be compared, and it's. But then again, if neither of them are secure, that's pretty useless. Opt-out choice, that I don't think that's ever really worked. It's sort of like the do not call list, which I've never had success with, or do not spam, or do any of those work? Has anyone had success with a do not call list? No one? Sweet. Yes, okay, I'm not the only one. Partial de-identification, removing certain information from the data set so that you won't be able to identify the person. User actions, this is, I think, something that should be done more. Not so much the facial camouflage, because, I don't know, that's just kind of weird. I mean, I guess if you want to go out in camouflage, you can. But I think posting, what's that?
You are a big Gene Simmons fan.
I am. No, that's true. It's, or yeah, like a clown or something. But posting decoy images. Does everyone here have social networking accounts like Twitter and MyBook and FaceSpace and things like that? Or okay, I don't participate in any social networking sites at all.
just, then I don't have any friends either to, interact with. But still, it's, yeah. But if you do, post some decoy images every so often. Trust me, it'll be a good thing. And do it now, okay? Yeah. So, predicting intent. There was I believe a movie that they talked about. Yeah, yes. So, everything that Philip K. Dick, wrote it will come true, as we all know. And so this is something, a project, maybe program that's going on and growing, and so analyzing our sort of biometric data for classifying our intent, what we're going to do, even though we're not really going to be doing anything, possibly. I mean, maybe we are, I don't know, but who's to say that a certain behavior is malicious, other than, a truly malicious, you pull out a gun on someone, but it's before doing that. I mean, what actions that one takes before engaging in something that could be violent or malicious. Who determines that set of rules or actions? That's so. And looking at all these sort of little behaviors, whether it's it's your posture, your gait, so from that you're going to be able to capture the sort of their macro-based decisions. It's kind of weird. And another way of thinking about it too is just from the sort of exterior. You're just looking at someone from the outside, and basically you're able to predict what's going on sort of inside their brains. It's philosophically kind of interesting, but it's flawed in many ways, and I don't think really ready for something to be used as a security measure. But again, my concerns are that it may be used sooner than we think, and that that'll be bad. Because as a group, one of the great things about HackerCons is we're all pretty weird and different, and probably don't fit in the norm, and so our actions, might not be considered like, oh, this is an action of a normal individual, but it just means I have a lot of issues with that. This being able to see into someone's intentions. It's so it's not pre-crime, but it's it's suspicious or questionable activities or behaviors that are sort of going to be categorized and identified. And so that's why now, as they're capturing this data, to act crazy now, but don't actually do anything bad, so just to throw off the data sets. Behavior. Our actions, how much of them are conscious versus unconscious? We are able to control our musculoskeletal system and control our actions, but how much of that is actively something we're thinking about doing versus unconscious, just a nervous tick or just a reflex action? And those things are not necessarily bad things. They're influenced by who we are, our culture, our training, there's so many things that can influence how we behave and how we act in so many different in situations, but and to try to classify them as this is normal behavior and this is abnormal behavior is really it's I think very unrealistic. What's interesting is they sort of criminals and people in law enforcement actually will have very similar behaviors. They will be sort of hyper-vigilant, always very aware of their surroundings, and what the sort of checking their six or whatever, looking behind their shoulder, and the reason, I mean, the criminals are, making sure that no one's watching them, that they can actually, carry out some, bad behavior. Law enforcement are looking for people who are trying to maybe do this kind of bad stuff. So in some ways it's there's a huge area of overlap there, but they're completely, opposite in their intentions and goals. And so, I mean, it's just one example of how the two can be easily confused. The unconscious things, like the things that we that will change and which can be measured, respiratory rate, pulse, cardiac. Those things can be, say, heightened when we're in a very anxious, scared situation, or maybe before we're going to do something really bad. However, they can be elevated for a number of different reasons, for medical conditions, medication. You're nervous about something. It's pupillary reflex. What is it? From Blade Runner, Voight-Kampff test, right? Is that right? Yeah, and wasn't that where they're measuring? Sort of pupillary dilation restriction not only occurs to correct for the light in their environment, but also as an emotional response. Actually, viewing someone attractive, you're going to have pupillary dilatation. It's anyway, and that's something that you really can't control. However, there is medication that you take certain types of opioids, and you get very constricted. Like that's why mine right now are very narrow. But so there are some things that could provide some utility in behavioral analysis, but again, affected by a lot of different things. Action misclassification. So that's my concern in video surveillance is what is going to be misinterpreted as malicious behavior versus completely harmless behavior. And so things that you're doing, role playing, teenage kids do lots of role playing and roughhousing and just playing. That is not malicious behavior. However, the same kind of sort of fighting can be sort of interpreted as being they can be confused. And one example, Evan, you'll stand up for a second, is so he could have one arm raised, and I could be going like this, and no, you have your arm raised. No, just keep your arm up there. Okay. So I'm going like this, and it could look like that he's in a sort of submissive stance, and I'm going to punch him.
What is it with you and these things?
Stop, dude. Just listen. You're like the worst assistant ever. All right. But another plausible thing is that, like, maybe we just did something cool that we need some kind of, confirmation with some kind of physical contact, and he was actually going for a high five, and I was going for like the fist bump, and that's, but it was just poorly coordinated, and that's all, so it's not, and then if you, and then you do that, and I'm like this, and then I'm like, oh, okay, he's going for the high five. So then I go for the high five, and you're like, oh, I'm going to go for the fist bump. And it could look like we're fighing,
Who's on first?
And exactly. So that, all right, now sit down. Yeah, that's, so, and so actually, oh, yeah, what? Oh, okay. So those are, your poker face, what does that mean? Are you hiding something? Or you're playing poker. Well, obviously, if you're sitting around a table with a bunch of people who all have cards in their hands, then yeah, you're playing poker. But still, the point is that, again, you can, by having, sort of controlling your facial expression, you're throwing off the system in terms of, what they're looking for. So, yeah, if this just is like, as of like a week or two ago, smiles are now banned from taking your photograph at New Jersey DMV. So, and they're saying that we're using facial recognition technology. That's why. So now it's like
Yes, our driver's license pictures are being used for facial recognition, which is scary. So here, Paulie D is going to have to take a new one. And this is something that was not ever sort of advertised before, but now it's public information, and I don't know. Biometric lack of standards, another concerning thing. Just as of a few days ago, best practice guidelines for use of facial recognition technology. There's no legal requirements. There's, again, sort of best practices and guidelines, but nothing standard and nothing like you must do this, and NIST, ANSI, I saw all the, these technical subcommittees. I don't know what I think they just get together and have parties, because there's nothing that's like the progress is. No offense to anyone who's in any of those, but it's so slow. It's not staying close to the technology at all. And then with these, video analytic, behavioral profiling or prediction systems, you're going to have, think of it as, like AV software. Are you going to have blacklistings, whitelistings of behaviors, certain signatures? I mean, what was once a riot, now it's a flash mob. I mean, as trends, change, are we going to have to update those? The contextual updates. I mean, completely motionless, one place could mean you're just sleeping in a swimming pool. That would be bad. And whether, having a seizure or, dancing to, 200 beats per minute or something. It's that, again, so it's, definitely not a one size fits all. Lastly, healthcare concerns. Medical imaging. People here have had MRIs, CTs, before, right? Right, for like an accident or your, pre-op gender change, whatever. So you're getting detailed, precise information, and it's used for diagnostics. But what if it's used as identifier? So that we're overlapping with medical information and biometric information. Is that a question or the finger? What? Wait. Yeah, no, and right, yeah. So there are security implementations like HIPAA that that help a little bit, but not the best. If I had time, I'll mention it. But so our biometric data. I mean, so what we do online, that's obviously, it's just used to enhance user experience. We all, sure, and, purchasing decisions just to recommend products to us. And I mean, and we, all this information, it's always stored securely and it's never shared with third parties. And I'm saying all of that sarcastically. And so, yeah, so, why should we worry? I mean, yes, we should worry about biometric data collection. And it can actually reveal medical information that we don't want revealed. I mean, health insurance company gets a hold of this. I mean, these are just examples of things that can be deduced very easily from biometrics. And and just real quick to address what you're saying, securing medical data, HIPAA does some of it, or if we just imagine putting, uber security measures, but then what happens to usability? When you're if you're being brought in for emergency surgery, and what are you most concerned about? The confidentiality, integrity, or availability of your data? Availability. If you're allergic to some medication, or if you're, that's, we're talking seconds where this information needs to be disseminated around the, healthcare professionals who are working on you, but maintaining that security and HIPAA compliance and encrypt is hard to do in certain medical situations. So it's the usability, and it's a very tough thing we're facing with no real solution. And so
again, it's the privacy and accessibility is just like the usability and security. Yeah, so anyway, the solution, that as right now, because they're collecting, whoever they are, collecting all this biometric information about us, those video cameras are not, it's just not real time watching to see if you're doing something bad. It's storing information, who you are, your face, all of that's being done now. So, these products coming out, they claim to be secure, but as we know, they're not really. So, and when it comes to a breach of biometric data, that's going to be really, really bad. So, I think it's very important for the hacker community to continue to hack all that is biometric technology as it comes out to provide those checks and balances. And so we need to keep up the good work, and hopefully we'll have a Biometricon one day. So that's all. Okay, all right. I've used up way too much time. Okay, that's all. Any questions? Because I don't have any answers. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome.